Ready?
I am ready.
Lil bro is literally drinking right now. His ass is not ready.
I am ready.
Okay. Hello and welcome back to All Things Real Time, episode 2 of season 2. How exciting.
You don't do the intro right. It's supposed to be hello, friends and fans of the All Things Real Time podcast, and welcome back to another episode. Like, you're so bad at it. So
That's
today we
so
have an
boring. That's
interesting
so
topic. We're
boring.
gonna be talking about 400 rules for life. No, we are not. We are not talking about that. This is a joke. That's another joke that's
Talking
without
about
context.
the election.
Doesn't
Should we
make
do?
sense.
We have to timestamp. We have to age the podcast. You know, some people will record podcasts in advance and then dump them so that like people won't ever know like when they were recorded, so they can't actually mention anything relevant because then everyone would know that it was pre-recorded. But we don't do that, so I'm going to say England are still in the Euros, which narrows it down pretty pretty close because next week we won't be. And and also that we just had an election. We've got a new prime minister.
Also, you didn't ask
I
me how I
don't.
was
I'm not
doing it.
political. This is not a political podcast. So I'm not going to take a side, but what I will say is I just hope all of the political parties had fun, and I hope they enjoyed taking part. 'Cause that's the main thing
Art,
that counts.
can you put it so I can actually see what we are
Would
recording
you?
in?
Why? Oh, yes, I can
So
click
that
the button.
otherwise it tilts me. Like I'm used to it. Thank you, thank you.
You're
Like
welcome.
it's weird. It's like
It's
at least
because you
with
want to
this way
see
I can.
yourself. It's because you're vain.
No, I want to see you. If I
Oh,
wanted to see myself, I could watch it from the browser. You fucking
that's so
dingus.
true. How are you, Lorimbo?
Terrible as always. You forgot about to ask me. This is the. I think this is the first podcast with Cat Air, which are gonna look exactly the same. And also Cat Bill, which is also gonna look the same. But like make a comparison. You're gonna say it's more defined. Now I hate
Oh,
the
no
Giga
neck
Chad
beard.
Joe.
So true. Do you go to a
Yes.
Turkish barber?
No.
Do you not? Like 90% of
I
the
went.
barbers in the UK are Turkish now. It's mad.
No, no, I went. I went to a San Severese one, which is way worse. But
You go to
okay.
a
So what are we talking
Sardinian.
today about?
Yeah. Anyway,
If it, elections in India, why Narendra Modi is a danger? No, sorry.
I think that ship sailed. To be honest. Stormgate.
We
Let's talk
are-
about Stormgate. Why not?
yes,
It's a
let's
good
talk
game.
about Stormgate. It's the game that made us famous. No, that's not true. The game that made you famous. No, that's also not true. Because I was always famous and you were always irrelevant. So
That is true. Yeah.
that doesn't actually check out.
Some
So,
hard stuck 4-6.
okay, why are we talking about Storms? Why are we talking
Stormgate.
about
Good try.
Stormgate? Sorry. Because the NDA is finally lifted on the final alpha before the early access. So I want this to be a testament of our impression of the Frigate patch and our prediction for early access. Today is, should I date this completely? Today is early July. Let's just say
Yeah.
that. Early July, a day in the first 15 of July.
Yeah. Oh, the first third of July, maybe. So between the 0th and the 10th.
Yeah, between the zeros and the 10th. And so
That's
this,
exciting because it means that Stormgate is only like some weeks away. It opens at the end of
yeah,
July, before the middle of August, like open release when it becomes like free to join as opposed to like pay to get entry. So
yeah.
yeah, it's exciting times.
It's gonna be open in two steps. One is the all of the people that have paid or got a keys to the alpha and beta phases are gonna get access to it.
Yep.
And then 2 weeks later, I think on the 13th of August, everyone is gonna be able to get in. The game is gonna go completely public. So there is a lot to talk about, Art, don't you think?
I actually disagree. I think we talked a lot about kind of the basics and that sort of thing, so I'd recommend people go and listen to old podcasts. But Frigate obviously had some pretty big changes.
No, there's so much we can do. We can do the quiz on. We have the polls to do on
The
stream. Did you
quiz,
forget?
which unit are you?
There's no the satisfaction quiz.
Very satisfied. Next question.
You know which one I'm talking about. We said we were gonna do it eventually, But no, we're gonna do it maybe later if we have to paddle for time. No, I do think there's a lot to talk about. As always, Art doesn't play, doesn't do anything. He's useless. I
Hang
don't
on,
even
hang
know
on.
why I
Let me
put
do
him
my
in.
excuses. It opened right when I had to travel for work. And do you know what's really ironic? Do you know what's really ironic? I also have to travel at the start of August, right after the beta releases for work again.
It's useless. I don't know why I employ him. Your pay is getting halved, by the way.
Okay, good.
Uh,
Yeah. Just as long as you're using factors to half my pay as opposed to absolute numbers, then nothing changes. So that's good.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we are gonna talk about. I am gonna talk about my experience with the
Well, I should
frigate.
say Frigate. I should say I did play some games, and friend of the channel and All Things Real Time team member Bossa, coached me. He got very annoyed because I wouldn't just A move and win. We played, I want to say like 11 or 12 games, and I lost 3 because of the um, because of I kept disconnecting and crashing. So I lost those 3. Fucking Bossa.
Sorry.
It's so distracting. It's the most distracting thing I've ever seen in my life. Dickhead. I'm gonna have to put it on the screen. Hang on.
Yeah. Why we have to explain this? Otherwise,
I'm
we look
trying to talk.
insane.
Guys, dickhead. I'm trying
This
to
is why
talk.
we don't.
I played a little bit right at the start, and then stopped. I didn't lose any games, so that was fun. And then I had to go traveling.
This is gonna show up in my nightmares.
This is so fucked. I'm putting it on the screen. Hang on, bear with.
Okay, so Boss, while we were talking, Boss was listening in. For some reason, decided to post a very cursed image in the middle of the conversation, which hopefully HaRT is gonna now be able to show, so you can too appreciate the,
It's so
the
fucked.
curseness.
It's so fucked. Why have you done this? It's me swallowing the mic. I can't. Okay, well, hang on. I have to switch the virtual camera. There you go. Now you can
Okay.
see. That's what. Why did you do this? I'm gonna record a podcast and he just sends me this shit.
He just posted this in the middle of the podcast.
It's on my second monitor. It's so distracting.
I'm fucking dying.
This is the worst start. It's the worst start to a podcast we've ever had. It was worse than the week that I failed to record the intro. He says, I haven't laughed so hard in years. Why?
It's hilarious.
It's not
Okay.
that funny.
Okay, let's get back on topic.
Oh my
Okay,
god.
I'm gonna put on my serious face
Oh.
and and okay, put that away so we don't see it anymore. Okay. YouTube short material, true.
I hate
Okay.
you.
So, Frigate. What's there to say about Frigate? Well, HaRT got coached. I actually played the game. Let's start, okay, with the obvious, okay? Let's not cut corners. Let's not go around the bar. So, you can listen to the full opinion in the 1 hour and a half or 1 hour and 40 minutes after this. I don't know how much we'll be recording. Let's cut to the chase. What do you think of Frigate, Lorimbo? My answer is it sucks. It sucks. It blows so fucking hard. I hated playing it. In fact, it's I played a lot of RTSs, both beta, alphas, fully completed years after release. I played almost every possible combination of stage of release. There are very little RTS that managed to make me quit because of boredom and how much I hated playing the game. Stormgate is the only one that managed to do it twice. The one that came close, I think, was Brood War.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I've seen you play Brood War.
It wasn't. You might think, oh, Lorimbo was raging on Brood. No, it was just boring to me. It was like, oh, okay, this nothing works as it should. Wow, I'm sure this game is amazing, but I can't fucking play it. It's I don't know. Stormgate man had 2 patches that made me quit. One we cannot talk about it because I'm pretty sure it's still under NDA.
I don't think that's true. I think all of the NDAs are gone now.
I'm not so sure about it. The car patch Is that
I-
under NDA still?
whatever. Yeah, I think we're good. We can talk about whatever.
Uh,
So the first,
Okay.
but that was only that one. Okay, so for clarity, that one was a patch, and then they rapidly got nerfed from there. No, I
No.
think it was still
We are
pretty card
the
dominant,
whole
but I
the,
don't
the
think it
whole
was.
the whole period of testing was like that. Well, the thing was, theoretically speaking, yeah. Well, this was before Elephant. The one
Yeah,
before Elephant.
it was the
I
first
don't.
one with cars in it, wasn't it? Before that,
No, we had cars before, but they
but they were
were
really
quite
bad.
different.
Yeah, because I was
Yeah,
trying.
they
I
were
was
really
only trying
bad.
to play mech. Like I was just going
Yes.
straight to factory, and then I was just losing every game. And then in the next patch, it was actually like working, and the cars were actually really strong, too strong. And but that is why, for reference, they giga nerfed them in the next patch and made the like turn radius really painful. Was their like way
Yes,
to like
but
really
then
try and stop the
but
car
then they
abuse.
reverted it. So if you watch, I think our first video on this channel is us reading the patch notes after the car patch.
Hmm.
I'm fairly sure. The car alpha should be saying, because like alpha period,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
because it was not a single patch, it was like a period in which we call it the car. I usually call well, they have their own name, but I usually tend to call the patches or the alpha periods by the name of the most broken or abusive unit. So in the first alpha period I ever played, which was also the first one that Inferno were introduced in,
Hmm.
and that one is widely known as the Baneling patch, because the flaming imp was the most broken unit. Then we had the car patch because what's actually called? I always call them car, but what's their official name?
It's not Hornet. Hornet is the planes. Hedgehog.
Hedgehogs, yeah.
Yeah. I was close.
Yeah, because the Hedgehog was the most broken unit in the game. Well, theoretically, the Magmadon was better, but
Yeah, I think
because
I was gonna say Magmadon. Yeah.
yeah, but the Hedgehog dominated the meta so heavily compared to the Magmadon. Like
Mhm.
how much of the game looked the same because of Hedgehogs. And then we had the other patch, which I would probably call it the Doombringer patch if I
Yeah.
had to
Oh yeah.
choose one unit.
Yeah.
But I think it's officially known as Elephant. And then we had the Frigate patch, which I would call the Sonic patch. Because the Chris that rolls like Sonic.
Oh
If you
yeah.
know what a
Yeah.
Chris
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen the old games of Sonic, the most broken unit was fairly similar. So
Yeah.
Frigate managed to make me quit. I had previously played 400 hours plus of Stormgate. I have been competitive in every single patch that I played, actually played. That I didn't quit. Was a top player, never ever even close to below like top 50, and most of the time between top 10 and top 30, depending on the specific moment of the patch. I've always been a very competitive player, and this one made me fully quit. So what was the problem with this patch? I think my problem with this patch is that well, this is the patch that introduced this alpha period that introduced Celestial, and surprisingly enough, I don't think Celestial were the things that made me quit. I'm gonna be honest, actually. They were one of the things that made me quit.
Can I
But
guess the other one?
despite sorry?
Can I guess
Yeah,
the other one?
say.
Promote.
No, actually.
Okay.
For me, it was Celestial and it was the Lancer. Not
Really?
because yes.
Okay.
Not because the Lancer was problematic. Well, it was problematic. Lancer All-in was still fucking disgusting. Exactly as before. My problem with it was compared to something like the promote, which I think. So basically, the promote, we could substitute the Lancer for the promote because the gist is the same. The gist of it was the Lancer, the fact that the Lancer was completely unchanged and that had every
It
single
was.
problem
It was.
that
It was
was
changed
discussed
technically.
before.
It was
What
changed.
changed?
They switched the EXO and the Lancer upgrade. So instead of needing tech to get the EXO stim equivalent, you needed tech to get the Lancer upgrade instead. So the
Yeah, but
EXO
yeah, okay,
stim, it
sure.
was tier 1.
Yeah, but the actual Lancer was identical,
Yeah,
and
I don't think
with
they
the
changed
upgrade
any
too, it
numbers.
was identical. They changed the path of the. Okay, sure. I was very sure that the Lancer didn't say change, so I was like, wow, did I somehow miss a Lancer change? No, I didn't. They just moved the upgrade around, which solved some problems, I guess, like Lancer Solin, I guess. But it didn't for me, for example. It was not the problem that I had with Lancer. Like Lancer and Alin were a symptom of the problem, and I have a whole video about talking about the Lancer, why the Lancer is confusing design and very, I wouldn't call it generic, but very all over the place, the god unit basically. So the reason why the Lancer made me quit is because that was the realization. Okay, so there are two possibilities here. Either one, most of the community just disagrees with me on the Lancer. I don't think that's true. I think the Lancer was one of the most hated units by every Infernal ever, the last patch. I think even many Vanguard did not like the Lancer All-ins because the meta became Lancer All-in or you are behind because of the Doombringer and blah 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 blah,
Yeah,
which also doesn't feel great.
Yep.
Especially if you wanted to play cars, for example, or if you wanted to play mech, or if you wanted to play other stuff, which they were still viable. Actually, I think cars were really, really slept on. Shout out to Adon Minus, who was one of the few people to realize in the Elephant patch how broken cars still were, how much you could, how much advantage you could get against vault openings with them. It was the realization that okay, either most of the community disagrees with me, which is still possible. That's what everyone like. That's what, for example, certain moderators told me or other people that I've talked to. But I'm sorry, that was not my impression. I don't understand why the Lancer was not changed. It seemed to me like almost everyone agreed that it was not a great design. It seems to me that Promote was in a very similar situation, and it got the same treatment. Where instead of being, oh wow, a lot of people have a problem with this specific mechanic of the game, maybe we should think about it, and we should think about how to work around it or how we can do it. It's just that, okay, it's actually a minority, we're not gonna change it, people love it, we're gonna even double down on it. And then you get stuff like the promote upgrade. So what's the promote upgrade? Lorimbo, what are you teasing about? So what Frost Giant did for this patch, one I think is the one probably for the meta, one of the most impactful, actually the most impactful change. Because it was it broke both Vanguard versus Infernal and Vanguard versus Celestial with the car All-ins.
I think it
from
wasn't
what
great in Vanguard versus Vanguard as well. I think people were doing stuff with
I don't
dots
know
and
about Vanguard
promote as
versus
well.
Vanguard.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming it's gonna be broken. Yeah, Dog Rush in
Yeah,
Vanguard
'cause-
versus Vanguard
yeah.
probably. Yeah.
So
that
should I explain the mechanic of the what was
yeah,
on?
sure.
There's a top bar in the game, right? And with powers, and we've talked a lot about the powers in the past. From what I remember, they didn't change the powers. They just added this new one as the first one for Vanguard, and then shift all the others along. These unlocked when you went to tier 2 tech on your command post. So this is basically the equivalent of like orbital, let's say, or lair, more like lair in StarCraft 2, if you're aware of that. And it unlocked the ability to use a very small amount of energy, as far as I'm aware, 5 energy, to promote a unit by 1 rank. So it would gain veterancy without having to actually do any fighting and kill anything. The problem with that is that units gain attack and armor with veterancy, so they become stronger, but they also become harder
Depends
to
on
kill.
the unit, actually.
Yeah, I thought it did.
It depends on the unit. Some gain
They only
HP, some gain attack speed, for example,
Yeah.
like the Hornet. There is a bunch of different things, but
Yeah.
so Lorimbo, what was the problem with this? So the problem with this was it doubled down on a mechanic that, in my opinion, was already very annoying to play with and against. The reason why I didn't like promotion or veterancy as it's known is because it has snowball mechanics.
Yep.
And I very, very rarely think that snowball mechanics are good or healthy for the game or even fun to play around with. I've talked plenty about what I thought about Infest, for example. And Infest, for example, in this batch got removed.
Yeah, and
it almost
completely
completely
broke
got
Infernal
removed.
versus Infernal. Yeah.
Yeah, so the way they fixed Infest was by making it quite hard to actually get. So at the moment, as far as I'm aware of, there are 3 ways of getting Infest, all of them which are fairly complicated. The first one is through an Hexen, all of the action ability give infest, so both the skull, the mine, and the, I think it's called miasma, but I call it storm from my own,
Yeah.
since it works very similarly.
Yep.
All of those put infest. This is probably the easiest way to get infest. The second one is through the top bar ability, the one with 3 seconds delay. That one theoretically is available even earlier than like most of Xen's abilities, but it is a bit hard to land, if not quite hard. And then the third way is through the dragon, which only comes through late game. Why do I say Lorimbo? It seems like there's quite a bit of ways. Why do you say that they removed it? Well, because the thing that made infest, like the reason why it was a mechanic that was ever relevant in a big way to the game, was because of those early to mid game skirmishes. Now infest doesn't affect those anymore, unless technically speaking you could get the ability. But as I said, that's
It's limited, right?
basically it's very limited.
So there's
because of
a
cooldown,
scenario, let's say on Jagged Moor, which is where it came up really often, where in Vanguard versus Inferno versus Inferno, I mean, both players would basically run to the middle of the map, and it became a very like strict micro battle trying to infest the opposing gaunts and pop the gaunts, and then it would snowball, and you could then start taking camps, and those would snowball, and you'd end up with more and more fiends. Whereas now, I think if you run that kind of same scenario, you show up there with like a hex and then a gaunt, and then you at most get like one fiend, I think.
Yeah, there's quite a bit. Technically, you could get two. If you like, I don't remember who was it that. I think I planned this with Mixo. We were playing around with some ideas, and we realized you could stack skulls to get the two infest quite early on, and this was useful because it would fasten up your clear. And I wouldn't say snowball because it wouldn't snowball past that, but it will make your early clear slightly faster. Yeah, skull versus skull was also a thing, but that's such a niche interaction. I don't think it's worth talking about. The other thing that they did was so they're introducing Celesta. So as I said, promotion or the Lancer, both are a good ways. I hated the Lancer more because promotion, as I said, at least they were like, okay, we admit that this was like a complicated issue that we did last minute. We didn't playtest this at all, and so on and so forth. We're like, okay, all right, maybe they were like doing a thing like this. It's insane to me. I don't know how this ever got past the idea stage. Like how nobody realized, oh wow, this sounds like a really bad idea. A really bad idea. And like, to me, that's weird, the fact that this was never brought up, or maybe it was brought up. I cannot possibly know that, but the idea ended up going all the way through to being meta defining. So meta defining that at one point you could get to the top ranks by just spamming one base on lanes with Vulcans in Inferno versus Vanguard, dogs in Vanguard versus Vanguard, and hedgehogs in Vanguard versus Celestial.
Yep.
It is not a balanced one. I don't care that Vanguard is now the OP race.
This is what I did. Purely what I did when I played those few games with Bossa. Didn't even feel close. And he was, this is what I mean when he was shouting at me to A-move. He was literally like, the game's literally over. You can literally just A-move and win. And even against some very good players at that point, he was like, no, this game's over, just A-move. So yeah, I think, the mechanic was really problematic and definitely was boosting people. Basically, I'm just admitting to being boosted.
Yeah, but once again, boosted, not boosted, I don't care. What was disheartening for me was to understand that once again, something that should have been, in my opinion, very obvious to someone who actually fucking played the game at all, wasn't, apparently. And I always get told, oh, your ideas are niche, your ideas are niche, your ideas are niche. How many people liked promotion? I genuinely, I don't see. I've looked up,
I think the Vanguard players that like winning was a big fan.
I went back. I did Frost Giant job for them. I actually went back and read a significant amount of the feedback threads. I remember doing this distinctly. I did not see feedback threads praising promotions. I did not see that people saying it was good. I saw mostly people complaining or being neutral about it. The one thing that I remember is that a very old feedback thread, I think from Bailing Patch even, but if anyone has read it, they can correct me, or if the original poster remembers, I genuinely don't remember, that was saying that that was true, that in some of the first iteration of the game, veterancy was very very minor, and you wouldn't even notice it. Like you wouldn't really notice how much of a difference it made because it was way nerfed, basically a way
Yeah.
nerfed version of it. So and then it got buffed, and it got double buffed because the bonus became slightly bigger, and it became significantly easier to get them to scale up. And now you don't even have to fight or trade well or make your own unit survive. You just press the button 3 times for 15 energy, which is nothing, and you get a Vulcan to tier 3. That's the other problem. It doesn't scale with supply.
Yep.
That's the other thing that was so obvious. How did you miss it? How do you miss something so obvious that a buff that scales with how big a unit is should scale in cost as well? You can make it scale with supply, you can make it scale with cost, whichever is your favorite scaling mechanic. I don't care.
Yeah.
But how did this get through? How did this ever go through? It's like, for example, it takes more to level up Vulcan
Bossa
versus
says
a
it does
Bob.
make more. Okay. Oh,
It takes
you're
more
getting fact
XP.
checked.
No, it takes more
Yeah,
XP,
it takes more
but it
XP
doesn't
to
change
level
the
them up,
amount.
but it's yeah.
It doesn't
We're talking
change
about
the
the amount
amount
of
of
energy
XP.
required. It's the
Yeah,
amount of energy you need to get to promote through the ability.
it's almost identical, boss. I'm very sure about
It's
this.
always 5, no?
No,
Oh, wait, is
what?
that right?
Like,
Oh, I
no,
thought
it's
it was
actually
always one level.
it's so there. No. It's 1,000 XP.
Okay, okay.
Depends on the unit. But the thing is that it doesn't work because like, you can still use it on Vulcans to
Yeah,
get them tier 3, which
yeah.
is what is not like this kind of mechanic is not supposed to be used on high tier units. That's what the point is. The scaling that they did doesn't scale.
Well, and I
Because
think as
the
well.
veterans, it doesn't scale with cost or supply. It scales in a more or less arbitrary way. And I know this because even before Promote was introduced, the Vulcans were a unit that was fairly easy to get to tier 3.
Yeah,
They were actually easier
I have to admit, in
because you
what I
would get them
was.
with.
When
Yeah,
I was
sorry.
playing, I never noticed it. I always thought it was literally just giving me a level. I will say, uh, this is very reminiscent of something that we saw before, which was the shield mechanic, which is still in the game, but massively nerfed. And I think these things in a vacuum. No, I don't really mean that. What I mean is that it's compounded by the fact that the strategies that people were playing required them to tech up fast. So then these things were coming online quickly anyway. So, for example, they changed the dog upgrade and moved it a tier higher, and then
And
added
dogs were
this.
still
So
meta.
if you were going to play dogs, you were going to get the upgrade anyway. So then you would then by default have access to the veterancy thing. So like they hadn't put a very high barrier to getting access to these things in place, basically. And for those that don't know, the shield was it 5,000 damage? But I never saw anyone break a shield.
It was 1,000. It
It was
was 1,000.
1,000.
Still way too much.
But it never broke anyway. It was always it would
I
always
don't
just
think I've
time
ever
out.
popped. I don't think I've ever popped a shield. For
Yeah.
comparison, a gown does what? 5 damage? 6 damage base? I don't
right.
remember. It's either 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And the Lancer only gets 3 out of it.
Yeah. So you could put the shield. So what was happening is people were playing really fast planes, which you needed to tech up for. Then they'd show up with a plane that you now actually can't kill. So even if you had any anti-air, you were never killing the plane. So then the game would snowball and you just lose. So it's like they're putting things behind gates that people are already opening because I was always going to make that tech and now I get access to this thing that you've given me, but I was always going to do that anyway. So like the value is not like you're getting a lot of value for the cost.
Yes. So as I said, the other problem that I had was with Celestials.
Yep.
So
do you want
let's
to know what I
talk
thought
about
Celestials?
Celestials.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to talk about Celestials.
So I load up the game. I get into my the first game I played against Celestials was against Lilypad because Lilypad was like, "Hey, check this out," and I was just like, "What is even happening? What is even the point?" Basically, as soon as the game starts, I'm basically getting cannon rushed, and then it turns out that it's a worker that's shooting me, but it feels like the mothership core from those who played in Heart of the Swarm, and I'm just like, "Why are we doing this again? What is happening again?" We're like.
Oh boy!
Why is
Here
this
we go
back?
again.
And it was frustrating because there was in the game in the past there have been bunker rushes and there have been farm rushes and all of that sort of thing that they've really not been keen on. They've really been trying to get rid of those. But then they make a whole race whose like whole identity is about flying their base across the map. I think I think they're not keen on this kind of like cannon rush thing, basically. And I have to admit, I won the game. I don't know if Lilypad is just not a great cannon rusher or if I'm just goated at defending it. But I won the game in any case. But it didn't feel okay. Also, it was a bad map. Let's say that. But it didn't feel to me like I was. I wasn't excited to get into it. I wasn't keen. I wasn't like, oh, cool, this mechanic is back, and I love this mechanic. I was like, fucking really? There's a whole race that's just about the cannon rush aspect of playing Protoss, and that kind of put me off in general. I played a bit more after that, and a lot of people were like, not proxying, obviously in my base, but proxying at different locations around the map, which I think is the point of the race, and I think is interesting. But their units are also pretty rough, and I think you're going to talk more about that.
Yes, let's talk about Celestial design. So, I've watched, I read a lot of Reddit for Stormgate, and every game that I play, Battle Aces, for example, right now, or Zero Space when it's online, and even StarCraft, actually. Way too much for my sanity, actually. I read the comments on the Stormgate Discord. I read the feedback threads. I read a lot. Why am I saying this? Because I keep seeing people, the take that I saw the most is, oh great, this is just another Protoss. This is so uninspiring. And I'm like, look, I couldn't care less. I couldn't care less if they look like Protoss or they look like the Doom shaman from fucking from Warcraft, or they fucking look like Zer. I genuinely couldn't care less. I am surprised that so much of the discussion online has been on the quality of their visual design, and I saw very little discussion about how the race actually plays. So I want to address a claim, first off. The claim made by the developers was the following. Well, Celestial is a race that's supposed to be very unique. Supposed to be a unique race that has never been done before, with very unique mechanics that are never before seen. So of course it's gonna have rougher edges. It's gonna have problematic elements, and at the start it's gonna have at least some problems to deal with. I think this is a completely fair argument. If, or rather, this would be if the statement Celestial is a completely unique and new blah 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 race would be true. I don't think that's true. Wait. Celestial is definitely unique in some of his design. The macro aspect of it is very unique. I've never seen it before. Actually, I did see it in Grey Goo, but we don't talk about Grey Goo. We don't talk about Grey Goo, but because nobody gives a shit about Grey Goo. Fong said that the Goo was an inspiration. Well, I can definitely see it. For the 3 players that know what Grey Goo is, that's so it's not even completely original. But who cares? Grey Goo was a nobody game. Macro, yeah, sure, I could see it. Right now, you have to fly around. Your units are like powered instead of supply. You have like this weird conduit thing that give energy for your buildings. It's interesting, right?
But that again has been done before. That's very Command and Conquer, very pylons from StarCraft.
I'm trying to give this the most benefit of a doubt. Okay, so the mechanics with proxying bases and doing having prism over it, for example, was genuinely something different than how a base usually is.
Yep, yeah, I agree to that.
But that only goes for some parts of the design. So, and even not even the whole macro. So only some parts of it were original. As I said, the cores were really similar to Mothership cores in the way they worked.
Yep.
Yeah, they had the ability to morph into buildings and to morph
Yeah. I
into
mean, they're
bases.
workers. Yeah.
They're technically workers, but practically speaking, the way the unit worked was very similar. But the units were not original. Which unit was it? Which one is the unit that makes me go wow? What's it called? The guy with the big gun. It's called Silver something. I never remember the name. Is that original because it has an energy system that makes it attack quicker, or rather it makes it do more damage and attack slightly quicker?
Yeah.
Is that original? Have we never seen it before? I could have swore that empowered attacks were a thing that has been done in a million other games before. Mechanics like mana regeneration and stuff. I've seen it in Immortal. I've seen it in other games before. So it's no. What's sorry? The Chris, a glorified invulnerable bending.
It's like a
Is
charge
that an
shot
original?
thing,
It's a charge shot bending. Is that an original design? The Vector, which is a Blink Stalker,
it's,
or the flying
yeah,
small
but it blinks
ships?
twice as much, right?
Okay, yeah, sure. It's a Blink Stalker that blinks twice as much. Like, none of those designs were particularly original. And to their credit, some of them, it's Tracer, yeah.
It's true.
Some of them are interesting ideas. The spammable hair unit, which, fuck, what is it called? I'm terrible with names. I'm gonna get fact checked on this. I don't remember what is spammable. I don't know what. I'm just gonna call it a Phoenix. It was interesting with the mechanic of doing more damage if it was close. There were some units on the ground that have weird mechanics. I remember. I think it's called a Reaper or there's some audio problems. Anyway, or something like that. That had like a mechanic. What was it? Like the more it attacks, the more damage it gets. There were some genuinely interesting designs, but those were the minorities, and they were not relevant in the meta game for most of the games. So what exactly, when we say, oh, this is all original, like, what exactly are we talking about? That you couldn't have seen the Chris being problematic because of their speed and the fact they become environmental, like, as if we haven't seen that exact design in for example, the imps in this very same game. We had another bailing, and we realized, oh, if it's so easy to get the bailing on top of units, it's really problematic. That's why the imp got severely nerfed. Is that to get slower? Like, so you're like, oh wow, but they couldn't have no. What are you talking about? Not even in other games. Even if this was their first game ever, they had this exact problem with the imp before. Because the imp was too fast, it would get dropped and just run into mineral line. And what does the Chris do? You right click a mineral line, it gets in, and it fucking kills the mineral line. It's exactly the same problem. How do you fall into a pit that you shouldn't fall it even once, but you fall into it twice? How does that happen? How does that happen? How does the Chris get to the game? Or, for example, the Mothership Core, right? So, I have a funny story about the Mothership Core. Well, the builder of the arc, I think it's called an arc light, the main building, the main base. Right. It's called arc something. I think it's arc light, but I might be arc ship. That's sorry, right. My bad, bro. It's been a month and a half, and even more since I last played the game. Yeah, because the NDA. We couldn't talk about it before because of NDA. It got removed quite a bit ago, but then we had the problems and stuff. So I'm gonna struggle a bit with name and stuff. The arc ship. How much HaRT, I think you know the answer, do you think it took for average players to realize how abusable that was?
I remember it being basically instant that everyone was complaining about.
It took
There's
5
a worker
minutes.
In my base killing my.
I was on the Discord with the developers watching, and in my very first game of Celestial, the first thing at the moment I see how the race works, like, what happens if I just run all the way across the map? And would you believe that was a thing that was absolutely busted? Then it got discovered that to counter it, you have to do a bunch of whole weird shit, like blocking locations with workers, like going one
Stop it
base.
landing. Yeah.
Yeah, like to stop it landing, going one base triple fucking triple gaunt to prevent it to go. And then would you guess that there is a map where it's just unstoppable? Jagmo.
Your favorite map. They ruined your favorite map.
My favorite map got ruined. Who would have thought that a map that had like 5 seconds, this is exaggeration, 5 seconds rush time in air time, could have this problem? Who could have seen it coming? So I'm sorry, HaRT. I'm sorry. This because I've been warned a million times. I don't have anything against the people who develop the games. I want the game to succeed. I like the game. I liked it. If you watch my first reviews, you can go back on the feedback threads. I had plenty of positive reviews and things. But how does this happen? How does this keep happening every single time? And the answer is this did not get playtested at all. And also, I have to call into question, I'm sorry, I have to call into question the professionality and the experience and the ability of people who designed the Celestial, that this was not the first thing that came out in their mind. I don't know what goes behind the scene. I'm not singling out anyone in particular, and I can only have anything but respect for people who work hard and whatever. But I'm not gonna call your work good when I think like the very basic things, the bare minimum wasn't met.
So let me
Like I'm not.
let me take a minute, breathe. I'm worried about your blood pressure.
Yeah, I've been told.
I don't know that I disagree. I don't know that I disagree that much. I think I agree on the point that if anyone was like, "Hey, should we hop in for a quick game of Celestial versus Infernal?" and then if you'd played one and you were like just trying to play it how it's supposed to be played, you might not notice. But if you play 5 and then you're like, I wonder what happens if I just fuck around a bit, because you know that as soon as the game gets into the hands of the public, they're like, I'm gonna fuck around, I'm gonna build a farm in your base, why not? You can't do anything to stop it, and then I win. It should have been quite obvious from a very early stage what was going to happen. I think it worries me that the play style is necessarily very similar to a mechanic that a lot of people find irritating. I had a conversation yesterday, in fact, with technically this morning, in fact, with a very famous cannon rusher, and I don't disagree or completely agree on anything that we talked about, but I did ask him if we polled and said, should we just delete cannon rush? We'll just get rid of it. It just won't be a thing. If more people would vote to get rid of it or not. And I'm curious what you think about that as well, Lorimbo.
Yeah, absolutely. They would vote to get rid of it.
Yeah, he wasn't convinced. He said the opposite. But I think if you ask, if as soon as you log into StarCraft, and there's a pop up that says click yes or no and we'll get rid of cannon rush, I'd struggle to think it wasn't close. Like 75% of people would say ban it from the game.
I think he has a warped view on this.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think it's his opinions, though. It's his opinions. He's free to have those opinions on the sign.
And I think
I've
if
told
you
him
said
that I disagree with the Canada specifically.
But I think if you said to people, have you ever been frustrated playing against it? I think 100% of people would say yes. This is, or like if you ask them, name your top 3 most annoying things to play against.
Okay, but I think that's a bad argument, because I think that goes for literally anything. Have you ever been so frustrated playing against Zerg? Yes. Should you remove Zerg? I'm a Zerg player. Yes. Just remove Z with Z.
My point being is, if you're maximizing for enjoyment in a new game, would I pick this to be one of the like mechanics or themes to carry over? Probably not.
I don't think they intended that. I genuinely don't think they intended. That's the thing that I was.
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
I think this was accidental. I don't think this was intended to be. But like a lot of. I'm sorry, but I have to call into question it, because I'm like, okay, this was not intended. I'm not accusing anyone of being like, oh, this is cool design. Actually, no, I don't think this was ever, especially stuff like the Jagmo experience. For those who don't know, Jagmo was literally like, as long as the Celestial player knew, at least somewhat knew the game worked, it was impossible. Like, no, I'm not being hyperbolic here. I'm talking 100% win rate for the Celestial player. There was no way to stop it. Your best bet, I am not kidding, was to blindly take a worker at the start, go on the opposite corner of the map, and try to build a base, and hope that your opponent wasted so much time killing your first base instead of looking for your second one.
Yeah.
And that was about it.
Yeah.
Lilypad, producer Lilypad, played 20 to 30 games against Boss, one of the best Infernal players in the world, who also qualified for the 10K tournaments, who has been at top of every fucking leaderboard known to man several times, and they won all of them. She won every single one of those games, despite the fact that Lily is, no offense to producer Pub, not that good at the game compared to Boss.
Regardless of how good a person is as well, it's like the race is very new and very unoptimized, very unfigured out. And the fact that very quickly people could go from, the race has only been out for a matter of weeks, to beating people who've been playing Vanguard, or beating people who've been playing Infernal for months by that point, is very telling.
And then there was, I also hit the moving goalpost. Oh, this is not bad. So first, I remember this so clearly. I remember having a discussion with the moderators in the feedback threads. You know what I'm talking about. The moderator. The big one. I said, well, this is not a problem because this is only hyper optimized at your level, Lorimbo, like at a high level. No, because I was trash. I was hard stuck. Like, I think the highest I got this was 1900 dispatch. I'm usually very easily above 2K. I'm usually around 2100. But I don't know if I could have gone higher. Probably, if I had like adapted to the meta and whatever. I just quit the game. But even when I was going at 1500, people were doing it non-stop because the cheese was so easy.
Yeah.
And once again, let's not focus on the cheese itself.
Yeah,
it's the moving goalpost that's problematic. First it was, no, it's only a problem when it's hyper optimized. Then it became, no, it's only a problem on Jogged Mo, but that's not because the game, because we didn't think this through. It's because Jogged Mo is actually a bad map.
Yep.
So their solution to the problem was remove Jagmo.
Yeah.
Excuse me, what? What the fuck are you talking about? So Jagmo, which I will stand by this, was top 3 best maps of all of the maps that Stormgate had. I think it was one of the best designed maps. Just got removed because you didn't playtest the new race at all. You didn't place the most obvious thing ever. You refused for the whole month. There were no patches. This was a alpha testing period that had no patches. Nothing ever.
Yeah.
Because what would we need patches for anyway? And at this point, it was very clear to me that there was one, no way to properly assess feedback, and two, in my opinion, there was no interest in doing that.
This is why I wasn't that bothered about missing so much of the beta, to be honest. It's very early on, there were loads of really obvious issues right at the start, which I think is unavoidable and was always going to happen, especially when you add an entire new race into the game, an entire new faction, and you're like, okay, this has just been released into the wild, and then you're saying, oh, well, we have no kind of
no, but some of the things were unavoidable.
We don't feel like changing anything, we don't feel like tweaking anything. So I was
like,
why? So yeah, why? I'm not that keen to rush into it. My problem is more so that when you're gathering feedback, people will automatically think about how much fun they were having or how the game functionally felt to play, and it's really hard to separate that from balance. So it's not necessarily like it's not like there can still be good and bad feedback, but I think most people will think, oh, well, I just got cheesed out a bunch by a thing that felt really unfair to play against, and that is going to cloud their judgment.
Stop for a second, stop focusing on the cheese. Let's pretend that the cheese never happened. Because otherwise, I think this is like way too biased. It makes it sound like the problem with the Celestial was the cheese. Agree. But the cheese was not a problem with Celestial. No. The cheese was a problem that showed me that the game wasn't playtested.
Yeah.
This was the thing. The cheese and the promote.
I mean the promote thing as well, yeah, for sure.
Yes. But for example, like stuff like, the Chris. Oh my fucking god. We couldn't get to a late game scenario because of the crease. In fact, certain maps were straight up unplayable because of the crease. If you go back and watch the podcast, there is an episode where we talk about map design. Am I right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it wasn't
And
that long ago.
I discuss about being interested in the possibility of Stormgate having more open-ended maps, similar to the Age of Empires series. And to my surprise, and to their credit, they did something similar. They published a map that was called Isle of Dread, I think, that was way more open in that, like, the water mechanic, which that did nothing. I still don't know what the water mechanic does. It's good, it looks good, but I doesn't interact with the game in any way, as far as I understand.
No.
The shallow water, I mean.
Yeah.
The map was really good looking, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And was, for example, Infernal versus Vanguard or Infernal versus Infernal was generally an interesting map, exactly because it was more like Age of Empires 4. But would you guess, in Infernal versus Celestial, we couldn't test it. The map was unplayable because the only way to play against a mass crease spam was to completely wall off every single base ever, and even then it would get out traded.
I think
so. The explanation that we got was the Kree exploding on that, or the invulnerability, because I've seen conflicting report on that, so I'm not sure exactly which one, was meant to be a tier 3 upgrade.
Yeah. So we might need to explain
what
the
are we
unit
testing?
Because
the Kree is a bailing.
It's a
charge
unit,
and a bailing.
But it charges, it like rolls, but it is really fast, like a charge lot. It's melee and quite tanky, and then it's more tanky
splash damage
because it's invulnerable.
Does splash damage when it attacks, it doesn't die when it attacks, and when it gets killed, it becomes invulnerable for 3 seconds and then explode. While it's invulnerable, it can still move. This is an important thing.
So it's kind of like a charge lot, and then when it dies, it turns into a disruption nova. But also, it's really hard to kill it. It was a bit of a mess.
But this is the promote thing. This is the promote thing. So I already knew about the fact. I know for a fact that promote was play tested because Monk said so himself. Yeah. I appreciate the honesty. I really do. Yeah. So I don't want to use this against Monk, but or anyone else in the Frost Giant team. But how. I'm sorry, guys. You have to fucking okay. Let's put this other way, Art. What was the point of the? Of having a playtest. What was the point of having this playtest?
So
the point was to introduce hype.
You can either playtest it and then don't do any patches, or you ship it and say we haven't played this, and then you're going to need to patch it, and you're going to need to take a lot of feedback really quickly and say thank you for giving us all this, and we're going to put that into the game. We're going to do whatever. You can't do both. You can't not playtest it and ship a game broken and then leave it and be like, everyone go away and play that, and we're not going to change anything, but have fun.
No, but also it was evident to me that we couldn't even properly playtest it.
Because you're not actually playing the game, right? You're playing very weird states.
We're playing a hyper specific meta where it became against Chris you have to go massive split guns because apparently Celestial didn't have any good anti-air, so it will basically giga camp. And let's talk about how the Infernal design was moved more and more and more and more as the course goes towards camping. What the fuck is up with that? This is a game in which if you play Infernal or Celestial, you'd rather stare. This is not my quote. This is a quote from a very famous pro player of this game, of countable other games. I'd rather watch paint dry than play the first 5 minutes of Infernal or Celestial. Vanguard is the only race that somewhat feels like you do stuff. And because that was playing Infernal was fucking hell. It was just camping. You would not stop. You would make workers camp some more, and they were designed like the Shoutstone, the big Shoutstone. Why was that added? What's the point of that? That just evolved more and more and more into the problem that already was present in the game. Okay, if you want to make a camping game, sure, but then don't call it StarCraft. Don't call yourself a follower of Blizzard. Don't say that this was you guys are the expert of StarCraft, because this is incredibly fucking dishonest. Your game is a camping simulator where everything gets stuck. where you build turrets everywhere. You make cannons everywhere, or in the case of Celestial, you make the nodes everywhere to recharge energy and stuff. And then you just camp, and then two big armies which never interact.
Yep.
Okay, sure, if you want to do that, but then be honest about it. Like, don't bullshit this. Don't bullshit. Like, you should have done from the start, this is our plan. Because they always had behind the time to kill. Oh, it's a lower time to kill. No, it has nothing to do with lower time to kill. It has to do with how the economy scales, like how fast the economy goes. The fact that in the first 5 minutes, there is literally nothing to do. There is the fact that the camps, which were one of the few things that was actually interesting about the early game, were changed into the definitely more healthy copy of Zero Space, but they became so mind-numbingly boring and weird, and it became like a control thing. But in Zero Space it worked because they were at the center of the map, at the side were only 3, and they were easy to contest. Yep. Here you have to go, oh yes, I have the gas camp in the fucking middle of nowhere. At the other side of the map, it takes legitimately 30 plus seconds to reach. Try this. Go on fucking, what's the map? The red one that's like, that's bases that go towards the middle. Everyone hated it. Boss, help me out.
I don't even remember that one.
Bone something. Bone Graveyard. Boneyard.
Oh!
Yeah,
Did that one get into the
Boneyard.
ladder?
Sorry?
Did that one actually make it onto the ladder?
Yeah, it did make to the ladder.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, play Boneyard and tell me how long it takes for your fucking first unit to get to the from the start of when it spawns to the gas camp at the edge. Go test it. Like if someone test it. If someone has some clips or some videos from it, do it. Go with a chronometer and go test how long it takes. So this is what I'm talking about. Like, there's nothing to do. Yeah, sure, slower time to kill. I'm fine with that. First off, it's untrue. Bailing drops, Balkans, gown drops. In this patch, XN drops for some reason. Mines that make just your whole army explode. Still bailings. So the lower time to kill is also very questionable. It's very inconsistent today. But no, this has nothing to do with time to kill. The game is slow and encourages camping. The objective on the map don't encourage you moving around because they can be camped. This is not a problem unique to Stormgate. Zero Space ended up in the same position at one point with the flower meta and the depot meta. But just because someone else did it, I'm not gonna defend Zero Space for it.
It needs fixing.
It was shit. Well. In fact, I complained about it. I shit on the Rare 2 because it's fucking awful. It doesn't matter what it is, Stormgate or Zero Space, since I keep getting accusation for my one consultation did for them. Oh, great. Yes, Lorimbo doesn't like Storm. Except I fucking... Like, if you go back and watch my feedback threads and start to see, the moment I start to turn was the moment I realized that every patch of this game, I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. I feel like this game is moving into a direction that's completely weird. First of all, it's unclear because there is no communication. So, is the game meant to be faster? Is the game meant to be more combative, like more action-packed? Or is it like a slow, strategic, kind of like, what am I thinking of? Fuck, I can't remember. Well, never mind. Is it more like a strategic army watching each other, like it is nowadays? Is it supposed to be a camp fiesta? Are you supposed to have more than one control groups? Are you supposed to do stuff more than one place on the map, or like what is the intent there? And if the intent is not to camp, what's the reasoning behind adding stuff like Roadstone? If you think that Infernal dies to a lean too much, the solution is not adding fucking band-aids, crutches and band-aids. Like, oh yeah, now we're gonna make shouts.
That was the shield battery. Was the whole point of shield battery? It's like, oh, you die too easily in the early game? Okay, here you go. Here's a thing that makes you just not die. Yeah.
Oh wow! Like, or originally the Shoutstone manifestation, for example, encountered the same problem. Then the Animus got gutted, which felt great, and by great I mean that you already had 6 spells. Like, 3 of which are completely useless. Now you have even less spells to use because you don't get any animals. And I thought it was a brilliant idea in a game where I just 6 spell to make it so it takes literally 20 minutes to get a dragon. 20 minutes! How many dragons did you see in Frigate? Great question. Great question. Not a lot. I will get very often to Dragon against Celestial, but that because against Celestial, every game was me camping for 30 minutes trying to take dragons. That was the whole point. That was the meta. Spriggan's Dragon, you just camp. Camp, and you get Christ over and over and over again, and the Celestial takes the whole map, and then you just camp and camp and camp and camp and camp. And that's all you will ever fucking do. And I genuinely don't understand. Like, at Celestial, as a race, I don't actually mind the design of it. It's just that I don't think it's good. It's just, I don't think it's original. It's just a bunch of gimmicks put together. It doesn't work well together. For example, the units don't interact with the buildings. Like, the whole gimmick about the flying ship going around doesn't make any sense with the actual units, because the thing is so slow that you basically either put it in the middle of the map and all in, or you like keep it on your side of the map and take bases and stuff. Like you wanted to make this interactive thing with the nodes that give energy, and what resulted is essentially shield batteries. That's it. That's what you remade the shield batteries walls and cannons walls in the middle of the map. If your favorite game is Nina versus Yuko, the one that lasted 1 minute and 1 hour and ended up in a draw, where there were cannons and the spans everywhere and you couldn't move and no one could do anything. If that is like your idea of ideal gameplay, go ahead. But go watch it. Anyone that likes that keeps telling me that Stormgate wasn't that good, that it wasn't that bad, that it was not true, go fucking watch that game. I want to watch the full hour, no times 2, no anything, and then you want to go back to me and tell me, oh yes, I really enjoyed the slow, and then it really got me entertained, the slow positioning of the army, the
F2 left, and then the F2 to the right. Fantastic.
Yeah, the endlessly fight, like the 30-minute movements that result in 2 cannons dying and 3 spines being moved, slightly damaged. Oh yes, that's my fucking favorite gameplay. Like, what is going on? I don't have a problem with Celestial being an original. I just want the races to work. Infernal, like, I think the only race that works well and is fun is Vanguard at the moment. I feel like I won't say they nailed
Don't know
it.
about that. I mean,
minus units that move quick. Like,
this is why I've been playing Vanguard from the start, because it's active, lots of quick units, so dogs and cars that you can play around with, harass with. Exos are pretty quick; they feel okay.
Yeah.
Hornets as well are decent. So yeah, yeah.
And the only quick unit that Infernal had to be nerfed 3 times. But no, we get to enjoy great gameplay like Mass Gaunt. I love the new design of the Gaunt. It costs nothing, does nothing. I mean, no, it's not underpowered. I wouldn't say it's underpowered. It's actually quite strong. It's just like the most.
It's very milquetoast at this point. It had lots of interesting aspects, and they've been like slowly kind of stripped away in drips as things were like, not really working out. I think Celestial struck me just as different for the sake of being different. And when I saw it, I was just like, oh, we're just trying to make something unique without necessarily maybe fully understanding ways to make things interesting and unique. And I don't know if that's unfair, but that's kind of the impression that I got in obviously not many games. You sound pretty passionate about it, Lorimbo.
Yes, I am passionate because I always get a shit ton of backlash from this. Every time I try to explain to people, I really think there are problems with the game. I just get accused over and over and over and over again of being a shit, of being overly negative about the game, because there are people, I'm not gonna name any names, but you know who I'm talking about, that are on Twitter are just being fucking dumb. They're shitting on the game for the sake of shitting on the game. They just wanted to make it fail. I don't give a shit if the game fails or not. It's good for me if the game does well.
Like, you're in the middle and there's loads of people from one side being like, the game will always fail, it will never kill StarCraft, and you're like, yeah, okay, shut up. But there are people from the other side who are like, you want it to fail, you want, you're just a hater or you're biased or X, Y, and Z, and it's tough being in the middle to try and be like, can we have a realistic view of the game? Can we actually like work on the best way to fix these problems that are coming up? I think I will say you're not the only person that saw the problems. It was pretty obvious if you look at the leaderboard. The top people from the previous betas are not the top
Didn't play.
people on this one, and it's because they were like, okay, I get it, I'm not going to play. And especially when there's no promises of a patch. It's like, if there's no kind of, if you can't see, if you can play and you're like, I'm going to develop this because when it's patched, it'll be in a really nice state. But when you're playing and you're like, why would I develop this? Because there's never going to be a patch, so it's always going to be like this. So why would I like try to improve and try to develop when I'm just in it's just in a worse state. I think it's tricky. Gotta phrase this more politically than you have been.
No.
It's tricky, and you don't want to like scream into the void, and you don't want to try hard in a game that's so in beta. I think it's an argument I've heard a lot. It's like, don't worry about it, it's just in beta. It is going to be in balance, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. And it's like, yes, that is true, but why are we playtesting a game that isn't getting fixed, isn't changing? We might as well just save our time and do something else, which ultimately I think not only you, but I think a lot of people did end up doing. Not going to name names, not trying to like appeal to the majority of people, the silent majority of people that you can't see. I'm just saying that like there were a lot of people that were not so keen on the last patch.
Like what I like like I'm reading again the feedback thread that got me into troubles. The one that was so hated because I was so overly negative, and I want to reread it to you.
Well, can you send me the link and I can get it on screen?
I don't know how that works. Can I just send a screenshot?
Just right click it and do it'll say like copy message link or something.
Okay, I'll
screenshot it. It's fine.
It's fine. No, I sent it to you. At the top of this, you can also find the what the questions were. With this.
Yeah, I'll grab both.
So this was incredible. There's a bit more after this, but it's this is the gist of it. Because I got into discussion with so many people about this. This was such a controversial problem because this was apparently, despite the fact that the feedback mentions nothing about being positive, except the fact that everyone was fucking positive about this. So what surprisingly, I got pinged and I was asked for my opinions, and I gave my opinions, which were not positive at all. Like I don't know what to say. It was just a feedback that was a disaster. I feel like it's. I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. I'm waiting for you to put it on.
Yeah, give me a second.
Okay, so let's talk about the. I just put it on.
Yeah. Thing is, do you want to do all of the questions first?
No. Just put the replies, and I'll go through the questions.
Okay, bear with 1 sec.
So it should be easier for you. I hope. So okay. I'll explain the context. This was a feedback post by Prime Scout. And Prime Scout did something quite smart. He wanted to ask about for opinions and feedback from top players, generically. I'm not sure exactly what the definition of a top player, but all of them were actual top players, so there wasn't any problem with that, right? And he asked them a bunch of questions about what they thought about the game, how they would rate their patch, how would they rate the game, and so on and so forth. Now, I was quite disappointed with this because I felt like a lot of the things that I know for a fact, a lot of these pro players, because I personally, with this very here, heard them say it, a lot of the problems and the stuff that was tricky about this were not being discussed about. And the whole post and the whole thread basically degenerated in a dick-sucking context. In my opinion, I'm gonna offend a million people with this, but they know my character, they know the way I think about it, so it's thing. Because to me, as I said, it was quite jarring, the difference in opinions between what I would. You managed to do both anyway.
I'm doing both. There you go.
Yeah. So let's take a look. So the first question is this playtest better or worse? I think it's so small. I don't even think you can see it. That's why I
Yeah,
only
it's
wanted you to do the response. I think make the top one
yeah.
smaller and the bottom one bigger if you
Well,
can.
it's an image, so bear with.
Okay, it's fine. So is this playtest better or worse? So most of this said that this was better. I genuinely don't understand how this is possible. You can take a look at the Steam charts for players, for example, to see that this was the least played one. You can take a look comparatively to the number of players, of course, since there were more and more keys given. You can take a look at all of the top players from the previous patch that quit playing to see how many good players just were like, okay, I'm so done with this. You can take a look at any number of metric and tell me that this was the best or one of the best playtest. Like I genuinely, it's every opinion is valid as much as valid. But I'm sorry, I'm just gonna completely disagree. So I said what I said. This is the worst or second worst playtest paired with the car one. As previously mentioned, these are the two playtests in any RTS game that I've ever playtested that got me so bored and annoyed with the game that I'd rather do something else. I just felt like, okay, this is too bad for my mental health. I'm a very ragey person. I'm very passionate. Everyone knows that, but it doesn't actually affect my mental health as much as people believe, nor my heart rate or my blood pressure. I don't know why people keep asking me about my blood pressure. It's actually on the low side, if you want to know.
It's the
I'm not
Mediterranean
kidding.
diet. We recommend you eat as much pasta, pesto, olives as
I
possible.
have I have low. I've suffered from low blood pressure for a long part of my life. In fact, I used to eat a lot of licorice because licorice raises one of the
There you go.
easiest way of raising your blood pressure.
That's why everyone comes to
So
All Things Real Time for medical advice.
yeah, yeah. No, I'm just saying, like, because people keep asking about my blood pressure, but it's fine. It's fine. I'm not gonna have a stroke, and if I have, I'm gonna die doing what I love, complaining,
And you're
bitching, and
not
whining.
and you're not suicidal. So if you get shot twice in the back of the head, okay. So
Yeah,
question number
okay.
2, I've
So,
made it even smaller, but fuck it. Is most
yeah.
and least favorite moments in the playtest?
So, so my reply was best moment was 100 people realizing in the span of the first 5 minutes of the alpha test that you could that you could choose on Jackmo and not only that a Celestial, and the sudden understanding that somehow such an obvious thing had the plate. Basically what I said before. It was amazing. I was in that Discord call with 100 other people, and a lot of people were trying out Celestia. It was amazing to see the same thing over and over and over and over. Everyone, like every single player that saw the race, one of the first things that was like, "Oh, these things attacks. Can I just like fly them to the opposite? Does this work?" It works. The worst part was playing against Masquerades. Unplayable. Some of the worst experience ever. I hate camping in any way, shape, or form. I don't like camping games. I don't like it even when it's good for my race.
Yeah.
I didn't like it when it's in zero space. I got it nerfed, despite it was the fact that it was in my race. I don't like it in StarCraft, and I'm really glad I don't play during stuff where there was like Broodlord Infestor. But I also don't have as much fun with Zerg nowadays, exactly because a lot of is defensive. You are forced to be so defensive. I don't like it in Stormgate when you have to be defensive, incredibly defensive, because as Infernal, because that's how the race is being structured for some reason. I don't even like it in Battle Aces when strategy like Mortar, Heavy Hunter were popular. I was playing pushes instead, Crusader pushes specifically, for example, because I like actions. I like being on the map. I hate camping. So playing against Masquerades, in which there was legitimately no way of playing it except either fully cheese it from the start or just go for the camp. Another thing that I forgot to mention, by the way, about Celestial is that one of their main gimmicks is that they cannot be harassed, which is such a fucking dumb idea that I don't know once again how this game. Like, you cannot mean a lot because they don't have workers and the prism fly. You cannot send a ram by to it.
If you go to harass a worker, they just move it away. They're pretty tanky, so it won't ever die. If you go to harass a base, as in like where their buildings are, they can basically Nexus overcharge any building.
They can also make them fly. They can also make their bases fly. amazing. So they removed like one of the core tenets of RTS harassment. It just removed against Celestial. You don't harass with it. Maybe you harass once you get to mass sprig guns 15 minutes later. Then the third question was how is the overall complexity and skill ceiling in the game? And I said complexity is there, but in the worst possible way. There is a bunch of clunky gimmicky units that don't synergize but have a lot of complexity by itself. As for skill ceiling, it's hard to say when the game is such in a terrible state that at any point in time, in any matchup, it feels like one player has the upper end by default. This is still my opinion. A lot of the units are complex and hard to use. I'm using air quotes here, in the sense that they're clunky as fuck. I was thinking specifically of stuff like Magmadons, Hellborns, Vulcans to a point. Not the cheese. I'm talking about like Vulcans and Atlases in more in how they're supposed to be used. The biggest one was which was OP too, by the way. At one point, it was really broken with friendly pools. What's it called? The Viper, the big giant Viper thingy, the pulse stuff. It tanks a lot. I don't remember what the unit is called as always. A Weaver, yes. The Weaver, for example, was complex. It had all of these weird gimmicky mechanics to slow up. I hated Weaver so much. What was the other question? I have to lean in because it's so far away. It's so
really
small.
small.
How do you feel about the core mechanics on the new faction? Said, I think oh, thank you. I think this is just better. Maybe you can move it later.
I'll fix it.
Yeah. I think Celestial are one of the worst design aberration I've ever seen. I've still changed my mind a bit. As I said, certain things I mind less now because I think other things are more problematic. But I do stand by by what I say immediately after. They tried so hard to make a unique race that they ended up with a bunch of random gimmicks that contradict normal RTS rules. For example, harassment rules or stuff like taking bases in order, or stuff like chokes being good for defendants. Like a million things that are completely contradicted by the way the race works. This is not necessarily a bad thing, as I immediately say, but there is no benefit to that. It has plenty of downside. It's super frustrating, and I'm sorry, I don't feel like the race is like, oh wow, I really want to play Celestial. So someone, a friend of the show, really liked Celestial, but they like it because the favorite thing is to make triage slow links in StarCraft, and they love playing completely gasless and just cheesing with Celestial. So not exactly the most. I don't think that was the intended gameplay either. So not exactly the most.
Though, no?
Yeah, he did very well. He was one of the top Celestial players for the whole fucking patch. That was one of the most interesting things. Rate how fun each faction is. Here I was honest. I did not play the other two faction much. I played about 10 games of Celestia, more or less, most of which were customs. And I did not play Vanguard at all because I had already played it a bunch in the previous three iterations of the game. I only played Infernal, and I would rate it at 0 or a 1 if you want to start from 1. It was awful. As I said, it was one of the worst experiences of my life. I hated playing the game. I hated the direction it was going. I hated the way so many things were being like told. The constantly moving goalpost. I hated more than anything. Stormgate community, please stick to your principle. If you think that something is important, if there is something you don't like about the game, be loud about it. Don't be afraid of passing as one of the critics, because the only way this bullshit keeps going on about people just saying, "Oh, you're just one of the haters," just be reasonable. Explain your points. Do it like me. You don't have to make a 2 hours video for each point like I do, but be reasonable. Try to explain clearly what you like and what you don't like. I saw the other problem that I had with feedback was that I saw so much bad feedback. HaRT. So many things was like, oh, X is OP, I don't like X. That's not feedback. That's not good feedback, at least. And that was one of the things that I was worried about, was the fact that because the game has so many players and so many beta testers, there's no way of making it like discriminating between feedback and who's telling
really
it was the
valid,
context and
viable
so on.
feedback versus like Kickstarter.
But also
People
the sheer
flooding in.
amount of feedback, as I said before, I mentioned
Yeah.
before, I went back and read a lot of the feedback to look for stuff like promote or infest. Since I was challenged on the fact that most of the community agreed that this was a bad idea, as I was right as always, because I don't lie. I saw those feedback before and I just had to look for them again. To whether or not to know whether or not Infest was widely liked by the community or not. If I see one more post about Infest being the worst mechanic ever made in existence, I'm gonna go insane. There is just no way of reading everything. I don't even fault Frost Giant for not reading everything. I fault them for making the feedback thread place a joke in the first place. If you want feedback, this is not how you do it. If you just want to provide a place where players feels like they're doing feedback, you're being dishonest. That's my take. Did you play co-op of Turf of War? Nope. I don't even know what Turf of War is. Actually, I'm assuming it was some kind of event. I genuinely don't know to this day, nor I particularly. I'm not particularly interested in that player, so I won't provide any thing. For all I know, the co-op was fairly fun, albeit a bit boring. But that's about my opinion on co-ops. So maybe it's great. I have no clue. Were mechanics and use of your faction able to be used as intended or viable? No, not really. As I said before, half of the mechanics do not synergize at all. Animus doesn't synergize with anything, for example, which is weird considering it's one of the crucial mechanics. There are no units that farm Animus, except the meat farm passively. There is no way of getting more Animus, like intentionally by using certain units or certain abilities. You cannot pillage it. The units don't interact well with each other. In fact, they have negative synergy. Where the more type of units you have as an Infernal, the worse it is, because they all get stuck. Good luck. Try to play Magma on Hellborn and tell me how funny that is. Try to play Magma on Hellborn. Had what are they called again? Weavers. To tell that.
I will say they say they've fixed a lot of the pathing things, so I'm hoping that works better now. I will say.
Sorry.
That. They're saying they fixed the pathing, so I'm hoping that works better now.
When did they say that? As in from the early access?
They've put up a thing on Twitter and YouTube, I think, showing the improved pathing.
I think they did that before this Frigate, though, no?
Don't think so.
Like, okay, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Foster says no. Okay, good. Yeah,
okay.
Good try gaslighting me. You didn't get me this time.
No, I mean, I didn't challenge you too strongly because I genuinely don't know what you're talking about. I saw the video in question, but I was under the impression that it was referring to the patches we already played. So hopefully they will get better. That was one of my main problems, for example, in the Elephant patch, where there are videos of me screaming about the terrible pathfinding, units get stuck into each other.
Yeah.
And so many of the things I couldn't even test or play properly, 60% of the days I couldn't even use. I've known that some things that were previously unusable became part of the meta later on. So I won't lie, I won't say, 60% of the race was not used at all during the thing. No, that would be disingenuous. I know the stuff like Hexen that at the start was considered a bit weak became more viable. Doombringer became stronger because of how the meta developed, how people were playing it. So now you could do Hexen drops, mines became better, and so on and so forth. So there was a bit more usage of that. But my experience was that I couldn't use anything. Every game felt the same, especially against Celestial, but even against Vanguard, I would have to constantly think, oh shit, I have to be careful about the Lancer all in. Oh shit, I have to be careful about the Promote all in, the Valkon all in, I have to defend, and then if they get to the super mega blob of death, at least I will say this is true, at least from my very limited experience, the super mega blob of death of Vanguard seems to be slightly easier to engage into. I think the Hellborn being smaller really helped with that. Because it's now easier to siege positions from afar, and it's easier to punish the blob without all of your units getting stuck. So that's a props on Frost Giant. I think that was a really good change. And some of the things were genuinely good. A lot, like for example, the Xen as a unit, especially in the early game, I quite liked. I like the idea with the skull. I like the idea with it being like a support caster unit that had more upgrades. I did not like the mines or the miasma. I thought they were boring mechanics, but the design was cool. So they were generally good things. That's what like, oh, you only see the bad of the game. No, I saw so many of the cool things. They were legitimately very cool. Joy reacted by Denver. I mean, I'm not gonna comment on on my relationship with Denver.
Shout out to
I
Denver.
I mean, I think he just doesn't like me a lot. I've never interacted with the guy. I don't know why he dislikes me so much, but oh well.
Bro,
What can I do?
I love
I guess
France and Colorado.
shout out to France.
Shout out to
Um,
Colorado.
yeah. So, like, that I also don't like using Doombringer, which also became meta. So that's obviously also a part of it. And on this, I will be fully transparent. There are some of the units were not playable, some others I did not play on purpose, like the Doombringer. I cannot argue about it. Is a new co-op mission arguably the new co-op mission apparently the turf
Yeah,
war
it's
or
tough ones.
something.
Yep.
Yeah, so um from 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend Stormgate to someone in its current state? I've stated here, jokingly 0, honestly probably a 3. What I mean by this? Well, like, if you catch me in a fit of rage or if you're like, no, don't fucking play the game. I give it a 0. Don't even bother, okay? If I had to be like super, try to be objective and stuff, I would say that there is some value to the game because certainly some people do find it fun. But it's still a 3. I still wouldn't recommend it. I think it's more frustration than it's worth. I don't think it's fun. I don't think it's a good experience. I don't think it teaches you much. I think it's a basically very subpar StarCraft. With in all of the worst aspect. That was my impression. That was the impression of a lot of people I've talked to that were very active on the Discord to this day. And there was also a discussion that we had a couple of days ago, if I remember. So maybe yesterday. I think it was yesterday night. Well, checking this morning again before the Canon Rush conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Point 10 was about esports. I would say
Yeah.
shout to Adiko as always. The guy's
Shout out to
legend.
Adiko as always. Yeah, but Adiko also, by the way, Adiko has a great video. If we remember, I'll link it down in the description that he just made, talking about the model of esports, grassroots esports compared to big corporation esports and stuff. Okay, so this is wow, you're just taking everything. I don't even know what he's taking a note. I just linked the thread to him. So these are some of the replies that we were, and this is why, for example, I like Monk, and this is why I feel bad when people say, oh, you just don't like the developers, you have a team. No, some of them are cool. I like Monk. Is the only developer of Frost Giant, the only designer that sustainably comes into the discussion and talks. He's not upset about it. He's not. He doesn't accuse me of being a hacker. Shout out to Monk, honestly, genuinely. Monk, if you see this, which I don't think you will, but if this comes to Monk, I like you. I think you're a cool guy. I don't think we're enemies. I genuinely don't think we're enemies. And I like the fact that you are very honest and transparent sometimes about things. For example, I like the fact that, as you can see, these are two pretty big admissions. It was pretty fun about, like, it was pretty fine about admitting it. So, for example, I stated, I cannot fathom how the veterancy spell was ever introduced into the game. Among the spies, this is pretty complicated, but feedback around veterancy was mixed. So, definitely, at the very least, I don't think it was very mixed, but I will admit that it was a
I mean, I'll
subset.
steel man him and say I think the concept of veterancy is quite cool. I think
Yeah,
the idea
exactly.
of keeping our units alive and using them
Yeah,
throughout the game
that's what I
is
was
quite
about
cool.
to say. Thematically, I definitely agree that thematically makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
So I was about to make the same still manner. I think from his perspective, this is a completely valid thing to say. Feedback around veterans was mixed. I think my impression of it was different, but I value other stuff over the thematics and over the how it. I value how it actually plays out. Right? I value more about a bit more of abstract of a concept. Fine. Promote to skill introducing an imbalance state and then expand more on that later. Then, for example, this is, for example, completely admits some of the decisions were also responding to the feedback in a weird way. This is a quote by me.
Yep.
Infest being the obvious example. Technically fixed, but in a way that I consider to be borderline removing from the game. As I explained before, the way they fixed Infest was just there is no Infest anymore. There is so little Infest that it becomes a very irrelevant mechanics. It doesn't interact anymore with camps. I would have liked for it to be kept and be reworked into more of a poison kind of spell. And maybe even the Infest thing could have been maybe an upgrade, for example.
Yeah, it was at one point, right? Yeah, It could be again.
No, but like an upgrade that transmutes the poison into things, but that would still be problematic because of big fights later on. So that's up to them, for example. But I would have liked stuff like a complete rework of the infest without the spawning
Fiends.
a fiend. Well done. I was about to say a ling, but still. And he said, I would agree that we went too far. So clearly, there is some of the part. This makes me feel a bit better about it. This is the reason why it has a 3 and not a 0. Because it's clear to me that some people, especially Monk, are definitely in the feedback. They are in the trenches. They are in the feedback threads. They do read the feedback. And if you go scroll up or a bit down, I don't remember, there's also one comment from Monk about specifically feedback. I don't know if you can find it. It should be very close to this one.
Don't know that I want to look for any particular comment, but yeah, fair point.
Okay, and yeah, sure. The general idea was basically the same. He was saying that it was something very reasonable in my opinion. A lot of the feedback, a lot of the changes made this way were done around elephant feedback. Okay, this was the gist of it. I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember the original comment. I maybe I can find it, but it will take a second. Let me find it. I'll take a second. You can. I can just talk and pretend I'm doing something well. Okay,
Good
for
job.
example, Lorimbo, if you look at the patch notes from Frigate, almost all of it is intended to address player feedback from Elephant. I would highly disagree that player feedback is ignored. I've read a lot of your feedback, Lorimbo, and I feel like a lot of it is contrary to what a lot of other feel. Not in terms of positive negativity, but with regards to specific regards to feedback about specific parts of the game. Sure. So this is like I reply, and this the reason why I bring this up is because these comments I reply to this conversation because I say, as for Monk, look, I can go more in depth if you really want. If you really think that my opinions hold any value, but a short gist of it is that I felt you guys were responding to feedback in an inconsistent and weird manner. And as an example, I brought up veterancy and infest. And Monk, as you can see, admits to the point. This is the context of these two screenshots. So clearly, while some of my feedback is against other people, which is a fair thing to say, I have a controversial opinion. I think most of my feedback was not that controversial. The game being really slow is a thing that has been said forever, and I've bitch and whined about it for the game being revolving about camping. If it's intended, my main problem with it is not oh, I don't like a game around camping. I don't personally like it. My problem is what game are you trying to make? Are you trying to make a fast action RTS where like the time to kill is slightly lower so you don't get punished by everything exploding, but there is action on the map? Or are you making a strategic game? Because at that point I might as well go play Civilization 6, which I think is a better game anyway. But I do understand that from one perspective my ideas I also like the fact specified regardless of positive and negativity, and I believed him. I believe Monk is. I trust him. I trust that he really read my feedback for what it was. I trust that Monk read it regardless of the fact that it was negative. I really do believe it. But I'm sorry, I do not agree with the fact that they don't disregard feedback. Because I've been told several times by several pro players that this exact thing happened with conversation, even with Monk himself. With people having to repeat over and over and over and over again before finally being taken seriously. I'm not gonna name any names, but I'm sure that Monk himself, if he looks at his DMs, can see that there were conversations like this that happened. I'm talking top players. I'm not talking top 50 or top 30 like me players. I'm talking top 10, even more most of the times. Players. Like we are talking about players that were at the peak of their skills that also had playtest just like me, playtest a shit ton of games and so on. Okay, I think this rant is over. Art hasn't spoken in a million years, so he can talk.
Thank you. I appreciate the. I've forgotten how to talk. It's been so long. I appreciate
Don't
your
worry.
approval. But now we have to finish the shit sandwich. I'm afraid we have to put nice tasty bread on the top as well.
Was there rice tasting bread at the start? I feel
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's just shit.
It's trying to think of a food. It's a. Do you have shepherd's pie? Do you know what shepherd's pie is?
I have no fucking clue.
Okay, with shepherd's pie, there's mashed potato on the top, but there's nothing at the bottom. So we're gonna make shit shepherd's pie.
Okay, all right. I
Normal
don't
shepherd's
know.
pie is made with lamb. So shit shepherd's pie, you could fill up. I
Should
think
go on. Okay, I get it. Go on, please.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the game develops between the two patches. The reason that they haven't the reason they said for not putting any patches through during the time of the playtest was because they were really focusing on getting the game done, getting it out, working on developing everything for their big release, which is obviously now rapidly approaching. So for me, it's like I'm really hopeful that there's going to be a really big kind of change. Boss is posting pictures of shepherd's pie, and I was so hungry. It looks so good. This is such good food, by the way. I'm going to put it on screen. Hang on. In any case, I think in the UK we say the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So I think we need to now see we need to see what has actually been done between these between the playtests, in terms of the one that we've just been talking about, Frigate, and then getting now towards early access. I think in a really big way, that's very scary because it's previously only been open to people like you and I who are playtesters, and then people who wanted to play the game and gave them money. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's completely valid and fine. But I do think that when you give money for something, you're more inclined to think positively of it. So if you got something for free and you're going to be really happy with it and say, oh, it was free, that's really good. If you paid $1,000 for it and it's not, and it's the same quality, you might think quite a lot worse of it because your value proposition is skewed. Inversely, you might think the other way, and you might think, well, I put money into this, I've invested in it, so it needs to be better. It can't be, if you bought, I'm trying to think of a thing. If you bought a mouse for $2 and then you bought the same mouse for $50, you have to believe that the $50 one is better. Otherwise, you got scammed, right?
Except if you are buying microphone, in which case for someone else, in which case you can fucking make them spend the money and then say, "Oh, I actually sounds like shit, mate.
No,
Why the fuck did you buy the mic?"
Sounds good. It sounds good.
Okay, regardless, yes, I do think there's bias there. I do think that people have to be careful.
But do you think there is chance that these things get fixed? Okay, we're back. I ran out of this space. We're finishing the shit sandwich. Let's go.
Yeah, we had some technical issues because HaRT is not too technical savvy. So, to end the podcast, because we always talk shit, blah blah blah. Lorimbo, you're such a hater. We're actually gonna talk about something. What are our hopes, HaRT? Okay, but what's the catch, HaRT? How with these hopes? How do they have to be? Say it. Say the word.
What do you mean?
Say
If
the
you're
word.
realistic, to be fair.
They have to be fair, okay?
Yeah, but also,
so, let's.
Do you know on shepherd's pie you sometimes put cheese on the top of the mashed potato at the top? That's what we got to do. We got to put a little bit of taste of cheese on it.
Okay, so we'll do realistic, and then we'll do slightly hopeful. Is that the right?
Cheesy, realistic, and cheesy.
Realistic and cheesy. Okay, so realistically, what I see happening is the following things. I think that regardless of what I say about feedback and not feedback, I'm not completely dumb. I do think that the fraudulent team, specifically Monk, has seen the opinions of a lot of pro players.
Yep.
They must realize, okay, we need to do something about it. There is something to be done. So I do not think that the game will be a change. First off, I almost for sure think that most of the really abusive shit will get cut straight up, or removed, or reworked, or something.
For a few reasons. there's been bunker rushing in the game, there's been farm rushing in the game, there's been turret rushing in the game. So I think having Celestials be like the only race that has this like weird proxy,
Yeah.
like early
They all
aggression
been
thing,
removed.
I think it will go. I'm not 100% obviously, but I think that will go. I think
Yes.
they have so far been really keen to clean up the early game. I mean by that, dogs used to do bonus to workers from the very start of the beginning of the game, no upgrade. This was really irritating. Inferno used to have no starting unit, so like adding the Hexen to make the early games easier against the like early dog aggression and that sort of thing, for example, has been there's been many little steps like that that show that they are really keen on kind of reducing the amount of I don't know, irritants in the game, I guess.
Yes, and I will go even further. I do not only think that they are gonna do this, but hopefully, I'm gonna trust them that what they have said about certain missteps that they've done is true. So, for example, I will trust them that Celestial as a race is mostly unfinished. So maybe those
Yeah.
units
I
will
mean, their words
become
were coupled together, yeah.
yeah. So they will get better. So the Chris won't be as a problematic unit. The Vector will be slightly more original. Sorry, I just read something really funny. There will be more content about Celestials that is not purely gimmick and is more well refined. So that I'm almost sure for. I think these are pretty safe calls. The not so safe calls is I really this is the cheesy part, right? I want to believe that they don't want a game to be slow. They want it to be lower, to have a lower time to kill.
Yeah.
But they don't want
they've
it to
said
be
low,
slow.
but not explosively low, which means they're walking a fine line. At the moment, I feel like they're leaning, like you're saying, too much on the camping side. Yep.
Yes. So I do hope that maybe some of the units that are super slow or very clunky or naturally seem to encourage certain type of playstyles will get reworked. For example, the Ratstone, which was such a big problem for me, because why are you adding more stuff? The Ratstone literally slows everything now, right?
Yeah.
So that was such a big problem for me. But I am hopeful that maybe that's gonna be reworked into another ways of defending themselves, right? And maybe we can fiddle around with the number. We don't have to add new units. We can rework the Gaunt once again. I did not like the newest iteration of the work. I think you can do. I think maybe the original one, like it does slightly more damage, slightly more tanky, and it costs more, but it doesn't have the infest. So like the original Baneling one, but maybe without the infest, then maybe just some stat to make it not too bad.
Or an upgrade for the infest or something like they've had in the past.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that I think will go back into those metas with the Reaper Rush upgrade having infest in.
Yeah, I don't know, infest as in like spawning a Gaunt. Maybe it's just like more passive damage, or I don't know, something.
Yes, or another thing that I'm awful.
I don't know. Maybe like if you get 3
be...
stacks of infest, you get a fiend, and if not, you don't.
Maybe we don't even need to remove him. Maybe just do another thing. We call it poison. Infest stays in the game on the dragon on the thing, and then we will, like, for example, we can do poison and we give it to the Gaunt.
Yep.
If we want to have some interesting ideas there, right? Or for example, like the brute, like the brute splitting the upgrades and stuff. We could, like, one of the things that I was annoyed with the change of hotkeys, for example, we could have 2 hotkeys. One that splits the brute one by one, you have to keep it pressed, and the other one that you can just unhotkey. Yeah.
And the same with Flame on Imps as well, right?
Flame Imps, because I thought it was really annoying, for example. So quality of life changes, I think, are gonna be fixed. I also
they've been
like to think
so
they're gonna have a full hotkey customization.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if anyone mentioned it, but like early on, you couldn't change any hotkeys, and they're gradually getting towards improving that. I think when they're trying to get it into the hands of the public en masse, I'd hope that they have sort of solved that all the way by now. Hopefully, in the last patch, for those that don't know, basically you could move which buttons related to which on the grid, but all of the buttons that are where they are on the command card will stay there. I've explained that terribly. So like on grid layout, which is, for those who don't know, QWER and then ZXCV and all of the keys in between, if there was a key on the command card on Z, let's say you could move it to D, but then all of the locations on the command card would move to D that had previously been in Z. I've explained that so horribly. Don't worry about it.
This is the worst explanation I've
You
ever
explain
heard
it.
of grid
You
load.
explain it.
The abilities and units that have the same button by standard key out will keep the same button if you change that key. So if something is on Q and another thing is on Q and you change one of the two to another button, everything that's on Q will change to the other button. I think that's way easier than whatever you said, HaRT.
Yeah, I don't know. What I'd like to see is more like in StarCraft 2, where you can say, okay, I want drones on D, and I don't want metabolic boost on M. I want that on E or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So hopefully, and I mean, shout out once again, obviously, to Zero Space have gone completely bonkers with it, and you can rebind like everything and change everything, and that's really impressive that they've done it. They've done it that way.
Yeah, they've done it with like a very simplistic mean where there's like a giant list of things, you know what?
Yeah,
but they have done it. Like this, you know, it's not exactly the most eye pleasing menu that I've ever seen.
yeah. But
but
this is
it
step in the right
works.
direction.
It's functional, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
It's functional. So I think all of these are gonna be pretty done. As I said, some of the balance changes I'm a bit more hopeful. I'm also a bit excited to see the partial tier 3 that they're gonna reveal. And I also really, really hope that some of the units in tier 3 might, and this is the cheese, because this is a bit of a stretch, but maybe they will fix some of the problems. Maybe they will reduce the campiness. Yeah. Maybe they will.
I can't see how the Graven wouldn't. That seems like an explicitly anti-camp unit. I don't know.
Yeah, only for the but Vanguard
only
was
for
not
Vanguard. Vanguard's gonna keep winning. Let's go.
Vanguard was not the race that had a problem with camping, is it?
That's true.
Like, it's not.
I'm really keen to start playing with those. I think those will be interesting. I think there's gonna be loads of like cheese rushing those, which again depends on your opinion on cheese, but I feel like it's gonna be interesting if nothing else. Mostly I'm really keen to play around with some of the things that they've been really publicizing, like pathfinding, global GM ladder, which obviously I'm going to be on.
Hopefully it works. Well, you are not getting any. Yeah, hope. Keep dreaming, bro. True, actually, no, wait. This is the proof. Okay, guys, I'm sorry.
I know what you're gonna say. Go on then.
If HaRT is on the GM leaderboard, that is the proof that the game cannot be balanced, possibly. So that's a very easy way. You check, you see HaRT in the GM, and you're like, okay, Lorimbo was right. The game is unbalanced. So you know it. And if HaRT is higher than me, not only is the game unbalanced, but you also like paid someone to get boosted. So you not only know something about the game, but you also learn something about the HaRT.
That's so true. So there you go. That's the mash and cheese on the shepherd's pie. Anything to add?
On the shit pie.
No, it was just lamb. It was just lamb, lovely mutton. But if you cook it long enough, it's still edible.
Anything to add? I really hope that Stormgate does well.
You're meant to say like and subscribe and follow us on Spotify.
Like and subscribe, follow us on Spotify. Rate 5-star, watch all our other videos.
Tell
we're amazing, we're great. Write in the comment. Write in the comment. Oh, that Italian guy is really funny. I don't know about the British one.
Yeah. Instead of DMing it to Lorimbo, just say it to my face, you pussy. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Goodbye.
Good night and good night.
Good night.